Okay, welcome back. I did a video on auto comprehensive versus collision. And in this video, I'm going to do how do you understand, how do you read your liability limits? What does it mean by 30, 60, 25? So I'm going to have a presentation through a PowerPoint and then I'll come back to you. Okay, I'm Tammy Grisso Delora, and my school is Tammy Delora Insurance Educators. And what we're going to do in this video is talk about understanding our auto liability limits. Here is my website at TD Insurance Educators. I'd love for you to join me on Facebook and LinkedIn. All right, what is liability? Well, you have some standard coverages like liability, medical payments, uninsured motorists, damage to your auto, but we're really going to focus on liability. So liability is all about covering damage for bodily injury and property damage that an insured becomes legally responsible for because of an auto accident. So for example, I'm driving my car. I hit Tom over here in his car. It is my fault. I cause him injury. That's bodily injury. I damage his car. That's property damage. So that's what liability is for. It's all about protecting that third party so that you, if you were to get sued because you caused someone else bodily injury or property damage. Now, coverage is going to be responding if you are legally responsible. In other words, you were at fault. Also, your typical auto policy is going to defend you in any claim or suit, and defense costs can be paid. In some policies, they're in addition to the limit. It depends on the pre-judgment interest or the post-judgment interest when it comes to defense cost. Now, how do we determine our limits of liability? Well, your limits of liability are there to provide the maximum amount available to the liability claimant. So that's Tom over here that I caused injury to or damaged his car. Now, most auto liability policies are provided on what they call a split limit basis. So I'm in North Carolina, so our minimum liability limits that we can have is 30, 60, 25. So what does this mean? Well, that means that it's 30,000. This first number is 30,000 per person for bodily injury. So these two numbers have to do with bodily injury. And then this 60,000 is the total that would be paid for bodily injury for that accident. And then this 25,000 is for property damage. So let's say, for example, that I hit Tom in the car, that I'm driving my car and I hit Tom over here and I caused some bodily injury and I caused some property damage. So what exactly does that mean? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go over to the whiteboard and kind of describe what we're talking about here. So we have 30, 60, 25. So I'm driving my car. I have an at-fault accident. I injured Tom over here in his car. And let's just say that I caused $10,000 worth of bodily injury to Tom. And then he has a passenger. And let's just say I caused $35,000 of bodily injury to his passenger. And then maybe I damage his car, and that is $15,000 for his car. So how would my policy respond? Well, my policy says if I have 30, 60, 25, that I'll pay $30,000, up to $30,000 for one person for bodily injury, but it can't go over 60,000. So the first person that's injured, my liability will pay 10,000. The second person that is injured, my liability will only pay 30,000. Even though I have 60,000 total, one person can only get 30,000. So what will happen here? Well, they'll have to go under their underinsured motorists, or I could get sued personally for that. That's why it's important to carry a lot higher liability limits than the minimum. As far as the $15,000 damage that I did to the car, I have up to $25,000, so I can go ahead and pay that. Now, let's just say, for example, we had higher liability limits. Let's say we even bumped them up to 50, 150. Well, that makes a big difference because that first person, I can definitely pay that 10,000 to because I have up to 50,000 per person. The second person that was injured in Tom's car, we can definitely pay that because we have up to 50,000 per person and a total of 100,000. And see, we've only spent 45,000 here. Definitely can pay for that car of 15,000 because we have up to 50,000 for property damage for our car. So you can see how bumping up your liability limits makes the biggest difference. Most of your companies out there will have limits of 100, 300, 100, which I strongly suggest that you go with, because you can see if you were to cause a multi-car pileup, I mean, those limits can go very quickly. Or you hit a car. There's not a lot of cars out there that are $25,000. Even a brand new car costs, a lot more than that these days, especially if you hit a very expensive car. I would definitely suggest going up to 250, 500, 100, which is a max that most companies carry. And then you can also buy an umbrella policy of $1 million, to even go over that, which I'll discuss in another video. So again, it's very important to have much higher liability limits than your minimum. Like I'm in North Carolina and ours is 30, 60, 25. All right, so our school has a lot of great CE webinars coming to you. They're brand new. It doesn't matter what license you have. All of these are for general credits. What are webinars? That means you don't have a test. You don't even have to be on camera, and you definitely don't have to travel. So a lot of great webinars, and you can go to my website and register for those very easily. Also, keep us in mind for any pre-licensing needs you have, like property and casualty. We do personal lines, adjusters, life, health, Medicare supplement, and long-term care. All right, so I hope that helped you understand your liability limits and why it's so important not to depend on those minimum liability limits that you have. In North Carolina, ours is 30, 60, 25. There's some states that are a little bit higher, some states are a little bit lower, but I definitely would suggest that you raise your liability limits. Now, it does cost money to do that, so you may want to take baby steps. Maybe do 50, 100, and then the next 6 months do 100, 300 until you're to that maximum. And also consider an umbrella, because as you can see, you can go through those liability limits very, very quickly. Okay, I'll catch you in the next video.